Well, it looks like Canada might need a little bit of freedom from America. You see, our guns are being taken away in real time right in front of us. And that's not even the worst part. Canada, Justin Trudeau, has pretty much decided that he's going to disarm the Canadian population even further with this new 324 additional guns that they're adding to the ban list. But then here's the kicker. They're taking said guns after they've been confiscated and they're shipping them to Ukraine to fight for democracy because there's no democracy in Canada. We're never going to be, at risk of anything. Who cares about taking guns away from law-abiding citizens here in Canada? We're going to give it to Ukraine. That's messed up. Nobody voted for that. And anyone who supports that is a piece of garbage. So we're going to be starting off with just a recap of that. If you've already seen it, don't worry, just skip ahead a couple of minutes. It's just so important for people to be aware of this particular issue. Then we're going to be taking a look at a couple other things, such as Jagmeet Singh, who does a bit of a press conference in front of indigenous chiefs and leaders, and Justin Trudeau does as well. And he actually gets heckled off of stage. He gathers his things and he starts walking away, and an indigenous chief says, "Hey, don't walk away from us. We're talking to you." And Trudeau smiles and waves to the camera. So yeah, it's pretty tense here in Canada. And then we're going to be taking a look at some other things as well. So I highly recommend and encourage you guys to stick around for the full video. Welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to the video, everybody. Before we get into it, I do want to encourage y'all to smash the like button and subscribe if you haven't yet already. It does really help grow the channel. And we're going to start things off with today's sponsor. Justin Trudeau keeps saying he has a plan to fix immigration and housing here in Canada. But the parliamentary budget officer dropped a report that actually debunks Justin Trudeau's plan to fix immigration. You would think that the mainstream media would be all over this, but they're not. In fact, the only real place that you can find this type of information is at Ground News. And to be honest, that's where you really get the bigger picture of what's going on in the news cycle. They're an app that I've partnered with because they're committed to helping you break through the Justin Trudeau just media bias, a stranglehold that they have, the monopoly, one could argue, on information. And you can follow along as I show you how it works by going to ground.news/sun, S-U-N. Ground News is an all-in-one stop shop where it actually shows you a summary of all the articles they have found reporting on any given story. As you can see, left-wing media is completely dominating the story in this particular instance. And if you look closer, you'll actually see that the radical woke left, they're just repurposing the same headlines over and over again. I mean, this is why it feels like we're living in some sort of left-wing echo chamber, because we actually are. Like, for instance, how the National Post is writing how the PBO is saying Justin Trudeau is overestimating his new plan's effectiveness. You're not going to get that from the CBC. This is why I absolutely love tracking Justin Trudeau's politics here on this platform. I can stay up to date on critical developments and media blind spots, which is very important. I really think that Ground News is providing a vital solution to something that we desperately need: a clear layout for media bias. You go to any mainstream media, whether it's CTV, CBC, Global News, and they all are regurgitating the exact same thing. But all of this is laid out extremely clearly on ground.news. Make sure you send this to somebody as well who would need it, because right now information is key, and Ground News sees how important it is to really just be able to sort through all of this information in Canada, which is why they're knocking down their top tier subscription, the Vantage plan, down to under $5 a month for my viewers. All you have to do is go to ground.news/sun, click the link in the description or the pinned comment below, or scan the QR code on screen. Plus, keep in mind, by subscribing to ground.news, you're not just supporting my channel, you're also taking back control. You're empowering yourself by making sure that you have access to all of the right, left, center, all of the media. Thank you, Ground News, for sponsoring today's video. And without further ado, let's get into today's video. Starting things off with this gun ban, this very, very weird gun ban.
Omar, effective immediately, 324 unique makes and variants of what the government calls assault-style firearms are now prohibited. All newly banned models have semi-automatic action and sustained rapid-fire capability. And government officials confirmed Thursday these guns can no longer be legally used or sold in this country.
Our goal is to ensure that no community, no family is devastated by mass shootings in Canada again.
These firearms join the list of more than 1,500 types of firearms Prime Minister Justin Trudeau banned the sale and use of in 2020, in the aftermath of the Nova Scotia mass shooting. As was the case 4 years ago, the government is offering owners and retailers of these newly outlawed guns amnesty until October 2025, while officials finalize a national buyback program. The move is being heralded by the gun control group founded by survivors of the 1989 Montreal massacre.
It's an important step forward, and I really believe that what remains to be done will be done.
The Liberals have been facing pressure to ban additional firearms that came on the market after 2020 and that weren't covered in the Liberals' major gun control bill passed a year ago. Today's move went over less well, though, with gun rights groups.
This is not a crime measure at all. This is strictly trying to appease voters in urban Canada.
It remains to be seen exactly how many firearms will be turned over in time. But once they are, the government says they have a plan to get them out of the country and potentially onto the front lines of the Russia-Ukraine war.
We've been working very closely with our friends in Ukraine to ensure that weapons that were intended to be used in combat could be made available to them.
Beyond the ban, the Liberals are promising to table additional measures in Parliament to address the rates of gun violence in intimate partner situations. But that won't come until next year.
So you can't buy assault-style weapons in Canada. It's just not a thing. But the media doesn't care about the truth. They care about pushing their propaganda agenda. And I'd love to know. I'd love to know what you guys have to say about that down in the comments, because this is getting out of control, man. And you even have American personalities that are chiming in on this. But moving away from the whole gun situation, we've got this dumbass here, Jagmeet Singh, who calls on Justin Trudeau to send $250 checks to more Canadians because this GST tax rebate that Justin Trudeau is pushing forward is going to send $250 checks to anyone who makes under $150,000 a year, but that doesn't count people that are on EI, that are on disability, or that are on a pension. So it's not really including people that are, kind of vulnerable, as they like to say. Let's take a look here.
So today what our motion offers to do is to give people some real help right away and to expand it to actually include monthly bills like we had initially proposed. That's your cell phone bill, your internet bill, your home heating, to give people permanent relief. This is a plan that's going to give people meaningful relief right away, and it also acknowledges that we need to fix the checks. The checks right now that are being proposed will go out to someone earning $149,000 but won't go to a senior. That doesn't make any sense. And so this motion today does two things. One, it says, let's make GST relief permanent. Let's give people permanent relief.
Here, here.
And let's make sure it includes those monthly bills so that people can see some real relief.
Permanent relief. I'm glad that Jagmeet Singh is actually saying this, because this is what Pierre Poilievre put forward in his motion for a vote of non-confidence. So there you go. This is phenomenal. Right? At least Pierre and Jagmeet can actually agree that there should be tax breaks that are permanent.
And on top of that, let's fix those checks. We're making it very clear. Our vote today in the House would make it very clear that we are saying collectively that seniors, yes, deserve some help. Those are some of the hardest hit people in our country. That people living with disabilities, they absolutely need some help. And that someone that just started working this year shouldn't be excluded because they just got their job this year. So we're calling for the checks to be expanded and the GST relief to be permanent and include monthly bills. So we have an important choice to make. New Democrats have always been and will always be the party of the working class. And we have shown that very clearly recently. And the other parties have shown where they stand. they've shown that they do not stand with the working class. The Liberals have let down workers by making the GST relief not permanent, and the Conservatives have shown who they're really on the side of. That's the billionaires and the CEOs, and they're against the working class. We're going to keep on fighting to make sure people know we've got your back. Much more work is needed, much more help is needed, and we've got your back, and we're going to continue to fight for you. Thanks so much.
Yeah, sorry, nobody believes that. You consider yourself the man that's fighting for the rights of the working man, but you're a piece of garbage. Look, you can have nice things, you can have expensive things, but he lies about everything in his life, such as the fact that he owns a Maserati. He may have put it in his wife's name, but when a reporter asked him about it, he denied. He actually laughed in the reporter's face, saying, I don't own a Maserati. Yes, you do. It's literally in your driveway. Plus, he owns thousands of dollars worth of Rolex watches, very expensive suits. He's a garbage scammer. He runs a Ponzi scheme. That's what the NDP has turned into. But I'd love to know what you guys think down below in the comments. And unfortunately, we're going to be watching another video of his. And this time, he's going to be talking at a indigenous chiefs summit. Let's take a look.
I also want to point out to you, we're coming up to an election. I think it's important to point out, when it comes to indigenous sovereignty and respect for indigeneity, I think it's clear we all know where Pierre Poilievre stands. If not, I'm going to point out some things. He has promised so-called economic reconciliation, but he votes against harmonizing our laws with the United Nations Declaration. So that means he doesn't want you to have free and prior informed consent, have authority, the right to decide over your own resources, your own lands. There cannot be economic reconciliation if the people of the land don't have power over decisions on their land. And so I think that is a fundamental issue. What I know is, from knowing him, seeing his
people in the crowd don't look too pleased with him. I'll tell you that much.
Work, he will always side with the billionaires. That's who he's in it for. And if the billionaires' interest is not aligned with indigenous communities' interests, he's going to side with the billionaires. For him, he wants to cut. He's been very clear he wants to cut. So that's going to mean cutting indigenous health care, which is already plagued with problems. We know that NHIB needs so many changes. Imagine cutting that. It's going to make it even worse. He wants to cut indigenous services that are already pretty inadequate in a lot of cases. Cutting them would just make it worse. He talks a lot about freedom, but he doesn't want freedom for you. What he wants is freedom for himself. He wants freedom to ignore your treaty rights. He wants the freedom to ignore your rights. He wants freedom to ignore the obligations of the Crown. He wants freedom to ignore free, prior, informed consent. And this is who he really is. You can't say that this is a mistake or, he slipped up his words. He said, literally, in the most heartless way, in the most callous way, that residential school survivors need, quote, stronger work ethic, not compensation. Who says that?
That's not what he said.
These are people that have survived atrocities, the trauma, the real pain. And he says that those people just need to work harder. What a shameful thing to say. You can apologize for that, but it just shows you who you are, if that's what you can even say. He said that chiefs like you, quote, have too much power. This is again who he is. He's taking shots at the chiefs, taking shots at people dealing with trauma. He's a guy that goes to the Frontier Center to give a big speech to his friends. Keep in mind, the Frontier Center is an anti-Indigenous organization that denies the truth of residential schools. I recognize that the Liberals have let you down, and I hear people say the Liberals probably won't get another chance. But I will not stand by and Pierre Poilievre and Conservatives take your power and cut the services that you need and deny your truth. I'm not going to stand by for that. I'm going to fight back.
Yeah. No, he's just flat out lying, and he's not supporting the rights of Indigenous people, for crying out loud. He has been, and still kind of is in a coalition with Justin Trudeau and the Liberals. Justin Trudeau said 9 years to fix a lot of problems, such as clean drinking water in Canada. You or me, we're lucky. We can go up to our kitchen, right? And we can just turn the tap on, and most of us are going to have clean drinking water. There are still communities here in Canada that don't have that. They have to go to the store and buy those big jugs of water because the water that's supposed to be potable is brown. It's contaminated. They can't drink it. It's not healthy. It's going to cause sickness, right? Or something even worse. So that's not good. These are the types of false promises that Justin Trudeau has been providing. And then you get this type of reaction here. Rightfully, this type of reaction. Let's take a look.
I am a youth, and I
Prime Minister, come to this
We do have very important resolutions for our children.
talk about moving forward on the child welfare.
don't walk away from us.
Hey! Keep our picture off. We're not a campaign trail.
Thank you.
Justin Trudeau seriously just walked away from Indigenous chiefs when they were trying to talk to him. Justin Trudeau doesn't see people as actual people. He sees them as props. He uses moments like that to say, oh, look, I am Justin Trudeau, and we stand with Indigenous people here as the Liberal Party of Canada and the Canadian government. We are doing good. Look at all of the Indigenous people that showed up. Take a selfie, take a photo, and then that's it. He doesn't actually address any root causes, any concerns that people here in Canada have. He's a greasy piece of garbage. That pretty much sums up Justin Trudeau. But I'd love to know what you guys think down below in the comments about that clip and just how he's handled Indigenous people or just people here in Canada in general. And then moving on, we're going to take a look here at this story where you have the Prime Minister who vows to change but won't commit to racism in policing inquiry at this AFN summit that just took place.
I wanted to just get your general view, if we could, to start, of how the Prime Minister's comments went over today, and in particular with you.
Oh, look, I think that we've got a lot of work to do. Certainly, I'm going to be in my job 1 year tomorrow, and we need to see action on policing. We need to see, of course, that you've heard from mothers across this country that came to the Assembly this week that we need an inquiry into policing and police brutality. There's mothers here that have lost their children, and I think that we have to help these mothers to find out why, and why is there so many First Nations people being killed in this country through police forces.
The Prime Minister certainly did express a big degree of sympathy for what people are going through in that vein, that they should, I think he said something to the effect of they should never have to deliver the remarks that they did today and over the course of these meetings about losing their children in this way. But he did, as I mentioned in the introduction, stop short of committing to an inquiry. Have you had a conversation with him about why you think that is the best mechanism to address the issue?
Look, we were pretty busy in Assembly. We just passed the resolution yesterday. I will meet with him in the days ahead to make sure that we echo that very strongly, that there's a need for an inquiry in this country, that there's patterns of systemic racism in this country, and that there's many First Nations families that are without answers for their loved ones.
What do you see as, I guess, in your view, based on the conversations you've had with these parents who have lost these kids, the anguish that they have been through? What answers do they still not have? And why have you kind of come to the conclusion that an inquiry is the only place they're going to get them?
Look, I think 12 First Nations deaths within 6 weeks is so unacceptable for any group of people in this country. I think any group of mothers, 12 mothers, put them in. If they're one group of people, why is that group being targeted? And I think First Nations are at the forefront of that, unfortunately. And I think that we have to figure out why. We also have to figure out why policing is so underfunded for First Nations in this country. We need it to be an essential service. The minister last July had committed to that. He had committed that that he had a mandate to continue on. 5 months later, we're still without discussions. We're still without the table that him and I had committed to, that we would come together in a good way to figure out First Nations policing services. We need the minister at the table doing his work, his mandate, and his job.
So there's been a lot of videos that have surfaced this year of RCMP showing up to smaller Indigenous communities, and maybe there's some words that are exchanged, but the RCMP officers take out their guns and they just shoot right there in cold blood Indigenous people. I think it was in Nunavut where something like that happened, and it just kind of got buried. Politicians didn't really talk about it. Media didn't really talk about it, but the videos that, you know, as long as they were allowed, because eventually they did get shut down on Facebook because there was an actual death that occurred. They went viral until obviously Facebook pulled them. So it's kind of crazy, man. Even the abusive power that police officers have in this country is nuts all around. I'd love to know what you guys think down below in comments about that. And then there was this weird audio clip that surfaced from, I think it's Fox News, where because you have Trump that made the joke that, hey, we should maybe acquire Canada as a 51st state, and that sent mixed reactions across, you know, North America. A lot of Americans saying, they're a little too liberal. A lot of other Americans saying, hey, great. They have a lot of, you know, people that love guns, a lot of right wingers, and a lot of awesome resources. We should actually consider this. And then Canadians also similar mixed reactions. You have people that are thinking, hey, screw yourself, Biden, we're Canadian. Then other people that are like, hey, I would like to be American. But then there's some people that have been quite defensive and said, yeah, America, try something like that and we're going to burn your White House down again. Kind of an interesting approach, but let's take a look at this.
Donald Trump was making a joke with Trudeau in which he said, you know, you could always become a state and those problems go away. But what did you make of that?
Well, you know, the president has a good sense of humor, and, you know, it's a funny comment. I guess he's still upset that, you know, in 1812 we burnt down your White House, and he's holding a grudge after 212 years. But I understand he's a funny guy. So.
I mean, that is true. That is true. Canada did do that, but I don't think anyone in Canada has the intentions of doing anything like that again. But anyways, let's move on here to Pierre Poilievre in the House of Commons. And this clip is about the Foreign Affairs Minister who is fighting for her boss's job and not Trump against tariffs. Here we go.
The Prime Minister has lost control of everything. He's lost control of the borders, lost control of immigration, lost control of spending, and now has lost control of his cabinet and party. In fact, his foreign minister is now announcing her leadership campaign in the New York Times. The Liberal leader of the province of Ontario has announced she's against his quadrupling carbon tax. The Liberal Premier of Newfoundland is against his job-killing energy cap, and 20 of his MPs want to fire him. How is it that he clings to power when he's lost control?
Yeah. The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
We'll see that the leader of the opposition has trouble with the ideas that individuals might have different perspectives, and that might be a good thing for a robust political party like the Liberal Party of Canada and all its partners across the country. The leader of the opposition refuses to let his backbenchers or any of his team members have any opinions at all. Indeed, he sanctioned them and wrote a letter in their name decrying their advocacy for their own citizens in their communities when it came to delivering money for mayors for housing from coast to coast to coast. He stands for muzzling his MPs. We stand for diversity.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Diversity of opinions, I guess that means the opinion that he should not be Prime Minister. That's the predominant opinion among Liberals across the country. On the front page of the New York Times, you'd think the Foreign Minister would be fighting Trump's tariffs. Instead, she's fighting for her boss's job, where she's described in the headline as a possible successor after she sat down for a photo shoot and made the case. This on top of a Liberal leader in Ontario who's against his quadrupling carbon tax, a Liberal Premier in Newfoundland who opposes his job-killing energy cap. Why won't the Prime Minister get the point? His party doesn't want him anymore.
Yeah, they're revolting against him.
Honourable Prime Minister.
Let's talk, Mr. Speaker, about standing up for Canada. One of the things that we've seen throughout our history, when Canada is threatened, when it's challenged with a crisis, when people want ill of Canadians pull together across partisan stripes, across backgrounds, across the country to stand up for our neighbors, to stand up for Canadians. That's certainly what we were able to do as a country 8 years ago. Unfortunately, this basic Canadian attribute seems unavailable to that leader of the opposition who can't help himself on playing politics with Canadians' well-being.
Yeah, it's not looking good for Trudeau, man. It's not looking good. And we're going to have to wait and see. I believe it's on Monday how things actually work out for him with this vote of non-confidence. So everyone seems to be under the impression, just unanimously, that Jagmeet Singh is not going to vote in favor of this non-confidence motion, which means that the Bloc and the Conservatives, for the first time ever, will be voting together, which is phenomenal. Like, everyone is anticipating that. It's going to be great. But is that enough? Just on the surface level, no, it's not enough. And I'll be extremely honest with you. However, don't forget, there's also independent MPs, the ones that have stepped down in a way and distanced themselves from Trudeau. There's also the 14 to 30, however many rebel MPs, liberal MPs, right, that don't agree with Trudeau, that wanted him to resign and to step down. And so we don't know how this is going to play out, even though the NDP and Jagmeet Singh, they're just saying we're not going to vote in favor of Pierre Poilievre because we think Jagmeet's going to be the next prime minister, doesn't necessarily mean that there aren't enough rebels and other individual people that are going to be dissidents from their parties and support Pierre's motion. We're just going to have to wait and see. But this is probably the last little Hail Mary option before Christmas. There's just not enough time to really do anything else. So I'm pretty excited. I'm going to be very, very at the edge of my seat this weekend as we just kind of watch things unfold a little bit slowly. The calm before the storm, right? You're in the eye of the hurricane, and then things are going to get pretty crazy once Monday comes around. But I'd love to know your thoughts and comments down below about any of the topics that were covered. And this, ladies and gentlemen, is where we're going to end this video. So if you haven't yet already, I'd like to encourage you guys to smash the like button and subscribe. And just remember that supporting the sponsors of this channel does actually help support this channel. I'll see you in the next one. Bye for now.